Is your glass half full or half empty? You've probably heard this question several times, but the answer to this question is really the ultimate test about how you view life in general. Are you an optimist or a pessimist? In these difficult times, it's hard to stay positive. Our brains, they say, are hardwired to focus on the negative. But our brains can change as we learn. Through practice, we can predispose our thoughts to be more affirmative. And while it's not always easy to see the bright side, it's always helpful. And more importantly, it's an antidote to any ailment, adversity, or anxiety. Positivity may be the key to a longer life. Join us today as we introduce you to the power of positive thinking and how it changes your life for the better. New year, new way of thinking. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. It's easy to say, new year, new attitude. But as we begin this brand new 2021, we can only soldier on by sporting a positive outlook. Joining us on the program are Ms. Sanaya Gurnamal, who is a certified expert when it comes to health and well-being. Also joining us is psychiatrist Dr. Agnes Joy Casino. It's good to have you both on the show. Now, before we begin, let's look at some of these photos to see if your brain is wired for positive thoughts or negative thoughts. So, which photo appeals to you the most? I'll give you a moment there to take a look. If you pick the kitten or the puppy, your brain may be wired to be happy. People who have happy brains respond to more positive things than negative or neutral ones. Dr. Casino, I'll start with you. This is just an experiment on free thinking, but what do you think? Are there people who are just predisposed to either being positive or negative?
It's a matter of our view of things is actually a product of our own genes or how our genetic makeup and of course the environment that we grew up in. So it's a matter of nurture and nature.
Dr. Agnes, mahirap talaga to stay positive sa mga panahon na ngayon. But we all still need to try, isn't it?
Yeah, because we can still train our brain. So before, we used to believe that when we are already adults, we cannot have changes in our brains. But apparently, research shows us during our adulthood or ganito na tayo, there's still some neurons can still be rewired. So this is how our therapies, our medications actually work. And of course, the life coaches and how our preference of friends or people surrounding us also help us.
Our mind and body are connected in ways that we cannot imagine. How you think can affect what you feel and vice versa. So Naya, could you please tell us more about this?
Dr. Agnes is correct. It's very much, nature and nurture, combination of these two factors. How we learn to think comes from our parents, our environment, our teachers. And essentially, if our environment was very positive, we would have learned to see the good in every situation. But in most cases, our parents might have struggled. There might have been difficulties. We've grown up looking at that, and that has influenced the way we think. Now, it's not really just about our thoughts. It's really about the impact that our thoughts are having on our mood and therefore our emotions and our hormones.
That's right, because our bodies respond to the way we think, feel, and act. For example, when you're under constant stress, you may develop high blood pressure, back pain, or even trouble sleeping. Now, I'll go to Dr. Agnes. What is the connection between what we think and these physical manifestations?
Yeah, actually, it's about the brain connection. So there is what we call the hypothalamic pituitary adrenaline axis. So we have all of those things. If we are things differently, or if we are not feeling well, or if we are angry, or if we are anxious, what will happen is that our brain will be alerted, will be alarmed, and it will release a lot of hormones that will affect down or cascade down to other parts of the body.
And Sanaya, when you catch yourself stressing or worrying, are there any quick fixes that you do? Is there a way that you can distract yourself so you're not losing control over these emotions?
That's a really great question, Dr. Gomez. The first thing that I would do is I'd start breathing. So what I would do is stop whatever negative thought or fearful thought that's happening in my mind and start to focus on my breath. So I'm essentially interrupting the thought pattern before it spirals out and gets worse. And so what I do is I just kind of focus on breathing in. You take even 3 deep breaths in through your nose, and you breathe out that stress through your mouth. And that will actually stabilize your nervous system immediately.
That's right, because there's a strong link between being positive and our health. And a positive attitude improves the outcomes in life and life satisfaction in general. Positive thinking simply means that you approach unpleasantness in a more constructive or productive way. You think the best is going to happen and not the worst. And this often starts with self-talk. So Naya, do you agree with this? What are your thoughts about this?
I do agree with that. First of all, we have to understand that positive or negative is just a matter of perception, right? Because anything that happens is just an event. It is our judgment to assign it as a positive or a negative. And often when we look at situations that seem negative, you can actually find something positive. You can turn it around just by shifting perspective. And so it's really how we choose to see things, right? You started off with the glass half empty or half full. I mean, both statements are correct. It's the same amount of water. But whether we choose to see it as half empty or half full is our choice and our perspective. Now, there's another phenomenon that I want to talk about called selective attention. So we actually look for things in our environment that agree with our beliefs, agree with our perspective. It's the process of choosing the perspective that's going to work for us. At the end of the day, the event is happening no matter what. But how you choose to see the event is actually going to determine how you react to it. It's going to determine how you feel about it. And it's actually going to determine what you're going to do next.
Now, Dr. Agnes, how does being positive make us more resistant to illnesses, like the common cold, for example?
Because not actually activate our flight or fight response, we will actually have our brain and the entire immune system in the body is going to function better as compared to someone who is already overwhelmed with all the emotions. So if we choose to see the positive side of things, then we are helping our immune system fight any virus or bacteria that's going to attack our body.
Now, negative emotions can sometimes make us feel uncomfortable or unpleasant. But will positive emotions still feel as good without the negative? We'll answer this question and more when we come back. You might think that positive thinking is all about positive emotions, but negative emotions are inevitable, and it's something we need to experience in order to live a full and rich life. Welcome back to MedTalk Health Talk. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez. Negative emotions aren't necessarily bad. They exist in order to alert us that something needs to change and motivate us to make that change. So Naya, how can our viewers use negative emotions to change them for the better?
Well, negative emotions are very useful. They teach us to appreciate the positive, but they also make sure we're very cautious. We're making the right decisions and we're thinking before we make any decisions. So as long as we feel the negative emotion and we use it in a constructive way to make better decisions, it is very useful. The key is not to get stuck and not to get sort of overwhelmed by the negative emotion so that it persists longer than it needs to.
Yeah, so Naya, so if that were the case, would you say that negative emotions are necessary in everyone's life? How would this benefit our viewers?
So what you're talking about, Dr. Gomez, is really the concept of duality, the fact that we cannot understand the positive without the negative. And so from the time we were an infant, that's how we learned things. And so it is necessary. However, just as light and dark are neither positive or negative, they're just two different states. So is positive and negative. They're experiences that we must go through without identifying with them and becoming that emotion.
Now, everyone experiences some negative emotions from time to time. What's important is knowing how to manage these emotions, because poorly managed negative emotions stop us from thinking and behaving rationally. Dr. Agnes, what can we do to better understand our emotions, lalo na sa mga panahon na ngayon?
Yeah. So I agree with Sanaya. So we don't label emotions as negative or positive or as bad or good. These emotions make us human beings. So I guess it's about dealing with the emotions. It's understanding yourself, why you have some kind of distress with this situation, and you behave according to your judgment as to what is best for you or for other people. Like right now in this pandemic, it's about teaching us no how to situate ourselves with the pandemic, how we go about our lives na hindi naman very stressful to us and to other people.
Tama yun, ano? So itong pandemic, I think it's an important event for us to realize how will we deal with these feelings na nararamdaman natin ngayon na may pandemic at nga ngayon may bagong variant pa. Because feeling angry or frustrated can be a signal that something needs to change. If you don't change the situation or thought patterns causing this, you might continue to be triggered by them. Now, Sanaya, how can we properly deal with our negative emotions?
So it's actually very simple, Dr. Gomez, and this is what I teach my students and my classes and my clients. So what I do is I teach them to ask why. Why am I feeling this way? Where is the emotion coming from? And when you can understand what is creating or triggering the emotion, then the awareness sets in and we can actually move on. We can move forward from it instead of being stuck and replaying it over and over and over again.
Now, Dr. Agnes, do you think that there are people who are naturally pessimistic o yung mga taong palaging negative na lang ang iniisip?
We need to, someone has to talk to them and to process where is this negativity coming from. So as Anaya has mentioned, we have to ask why. So we have to situate the person. So saan ba siya nanggagaling? Why is she or why is he having this generally pessimistic view of the world?
Negative thinking usually happens unconsciously and is often the cause of negative behavior. Recognizing negative thinking patterns can help us be more positive and create a healthier view on life. Now, how exactly do we identify negative thinking? Sanaya, what are some common forms of negative self-talk?
So the most common type of negative self-talk is criticism, being overly critical of yourself, and you'll see it with others as well. So if you are overly critical with yourself, you'll be very judgmental and critical of other people. Another thing to avoid is blame. So the tendency to blame yourself, and it's also mirrored by the tendency to blame other people. So if you're not very self-aware, you're not very good at communicating with your own self, start to see how you look at other people, and that will be a telltale, because we often mirror our relationship with ourselves in our relationship with other people. Anytime we think a thought that makes us feel bad, that's a negative thought. So it's pretty easy to identify the negative emotion, which will then tell you that there must have been a negative thought that preceded that.
Now that Sanaya has taught us how to identify these, I'd like to talk about the side effects of this negative thoughts or negative thinking. Because stress and other negative emotions trigger several processes in our bodies, including effects on our hormones, our metabolism, as well as our immune function. Then, Dr. Agnes, what are the side effects of negative thinking?
Negative thinking usually results also to negative behavior and negative emotions. So usually our body will manifest such negative thoughts and feelings by having several depende siya. It could be a physical reaction. So there's palpitations, there's skin rashes, there's the decrease in weakness in the immune system. So those are the physical manifestations of stress. But then there are also other manifestations. So for example, the social manifestation. So a person may tend to be withdrawn, to be irritable. The relationship will not be as healthy if someone is in a healthy state of mind.
But is being positive all the time a good thing? We'll talk about this and more when we come back on Med Talk Health Talk, your partner in health. Being positive all the time seems like a good thing, right? But we shouldn't pretend everything is okay when it isn't. Positivity can also be harmful when it delegitimizes real feelings or anxiety, fear, hardship, or sadness. In this case, it's not healthy positivity, it's toxic. Now, toxic positivity is the assumption that despite a person's emotional pain or difficult situation, they should only have a positive mindset. It means only focusing on positive things and rejecting anything that may trigger negative emotions. Now, Sanaya, what's wrong with being positive all the time?
Well, it's really about the truth. Are you really feeling positive? Is it coming from, the sincere part of yourself, or are you pretending? Now, in the beginning, this whole idea of fake it till you make it, so you try to be positive, that's going to help you, but it has to essentially become part of your real personality, your real feeling. And I think sometimes people, they hide the negative under the rug. So they pretend it doesn't exist, or they avoid it. And that's when you run into a problem. So in situations like that, you must get help. You can see somebody who can help you resolve the negative so you can truly embrace the positive, and that you can live your life really being honestly and completely happy instead of just pretending.
And I'd like our viewers to remember that it's okay to not be okay. In fact, it's actually normal. Dr. Agnes, so how do we deal with toxic positivity?
Okay, so it's actually about social norms. So I guess because people would like to perceive or would like to see us being positive all the time. So that's why we also tend to pretend that we are happy all the time, or that we are positive all the time. So how are we going to deal with it? Is we just have to accept that this is reality, and there are no negative or positive emotions, but there are just emotions that make us human. So we have to accept and embrace that makes us human. And then we have to also provide a safety space for others, for all of us to have healthy management or control of emotions, or regulation of emotions.
And if you tend to normally have a negative outlook, don't expect to be an optimist overnight. But with practice, you can eventually train your brain to think more positively. Dr. Agnes, how do we do this?
There are trainings that really work, which are also evidence-based. So there are psychotherapy, and there are also life coaching. So we can do that, and also we can even practice our self-care. So we can do yoga, meditation helps for us to be able to have to center our own selves, to find our center and to maintain our wellness, particularly in this time of the pandemic.
And one thing you can do to be more positive is through meditation, or practicing meditation. Sanaya, for someone who's never tried meditation before, what advice can you give a beginner on how they could practice meditation? And what are the benefits of meditation to our overall health?
So meditation is just like any other skill. You have to practice it, and you're going to get better and better. You might be able to meditate for 1 minute, 5 minutes, and then it goes to 10 minutes. And as you practice, you get better and better at it, but you really have to commit to it. Now, the benefits of meditation is, especially when you start your day with meditation, you'll find that your day will go easier. You're less likely to get triggered, to get irritated, to get angry. So you will find your temper is a little bit more balanced. You'll also find yourself more emotionally balanced. And in general, you will find more energy in your body. Now, yoga is another practice that's sort of adjacent to meditation, and both work well together. So if you're a little bit hesitant of meditation, you can start with yoga. And honestly, between these two practices, it will train your brain to be in a more positive state of mind. And so this is one of the things that I really highly recommend.
We'd like to thank our guest for today, psychiatrist Dr. Agnes Dorgasino and health and well-being instructor Sanaya Gurnamal. It's all about balance and knowing how to deal with negative emotions. There are a number of studies that tout the benefits of being positive, but moderation in everything is key. Stay positive, but stay grounded. Taken too far, it can result in a chronic denial of reality. Remember, there's no right or wrong way to feel. Rather, it's about listening to yourself and others and letting yourself feel those so-called bad emotions. A healthy outlook in life has room for both. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, helping build a healthier future for you. Thank you for watching.